Like this video for 5 years of good luck. What was your creepy unexplained experience as a child? One night when I was a teenager, my whole family had gone to bed. It was around 11:30 or midnight. My bedroom door was open, and I had a clear view of the dining room table from my bedroom. Everything was quiet and the house was very dark since all the lights were off, and we all suddenly heard the distinct sound of a kitchen chair scraping across the floor with some weight behind it, as if someone was sitting in it and scooted. Everyone was in bed and the dogs were accounted for. My eyes shot open and I was petrified with fear, and my dad got up and turned the lights on to see what it was. We still can't explain it. When my brother and I were kids, our mom and grandma left us in the car one day when they ran into the supermarket. There was an old looking car like a Lincoln or a Cadillac parked nearby. A man in a zoot suit type outfit with a feather in his hat like a cartoon pimp would wear got out and went around to the back. He opened his trunk and two ladies climbed out of the trunk. A white woman in a black dress and a black woman in a white dress. Both were formal looking dresses. The white woman saw us looking at her and stared at us. She kept staring at us for a minute. It was kind of an intense stare but also empty at the same time. I remember feeling nervous, so I told my brother to look away. He asked me why and I said just do it. And we both looked away. I have no idea, but I remember freaking out and for some reason really didn't want the man to see us too. I kind of sunk down into the floor for a few minutes and they were gone when I looked again. I asked my brother if he saw where they went and he said they went in the store. We agreed that was weird. We told my mom when she got back but she didn't believe it and she and my grandma laughed. She said if anyone dressed like that was in the store she would have seen them. My brother and I have talked about it a few times since. He still remembers it clearly and so do I, but he says he didn't feel scared like I did, just thought it was really strange. I still feel kind of weird when I think about it. I had this couch with a couple springs missing. They popped up and my dad removed them from the inside, so you sat really low on that section, almost as if you're getting sucked into the couch. My brother and I used to fight over who had to sit there when watching TV downstairs. I usually made him do it. One day I had some friends over for a sleepover. I was on the couch. My buddies were on yoga mats on the floor. I felt a kick in the night. Thought it was one of my buddies and told him politely to frick off. Another kick. Right under my back. How is that possible? I got up, turned on the lamp, and my buddies were both passed out. I went back to the couch, took off the cushion and looked. Nothing. Get back on the couch, turn off lamp behind me and try to go to sleep. It must have been only a few minutes when my one friend whispered who the other dude was when I turned on the light. I said, what? He said something like, you turned on the lamp. I was pretending I was asleep because I thought it was your parents. I saw someone standing behind the couch. It wasn't your dad. We then all got freaked out, ran upstairs to my room and slept in there instead of the basement. A few weeks later I get home from school and my dad is tossing the couch in the back of his pickup. I assumed he bought a new one, but no. He said he was sick of seeing it in his house because it was his dad's, and his dad always used to rough him up when he was younger, usually by poking him in the back where his shirt would hide the bruises. So when I was around 3 or so, we lived in a 2-story house with no balconies on the outside at all cause we were in a subdivision. My room, which was huge for a 3-year-old, had a crescent shaped window above a couch along one side of the wall, and my bed was on the other side of the wall facing that window. And I have a very strange memory from that room. I remember waking up in the middle of the night to see a black silhouette of a man peering through that second floor window. And the weird thing is that the feeling that goes along with that memory was pure terror. I remember not being able to move and him just staring at me, but my mom believes that wasn't the case. When I asked her if I ever did or said anything strange as a kid a couple of years ago, she said to me, well, when you were super young you used to tell me and your dad stories of a man who would float up to your window at night and talk to you. You spoke rather fondly of him, as though he was a friend, and you said he was very friendly, and this hasn't ceased to freak me out a fair bit because the side of the house was just a wall of brick, except for that window. I have no idea what it means. Shared before, but still the creepiest thing from probably my whole damn life. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house. Both of my parents worked long hours, so her place became like a second home. She was a tough old woman. Rail thin, but strong. Sometimes I'd watch her going about her routine and wonder if she was some kind of a witch. She just had a witchy way about her. But, of course, That might just be what resourcefulness looks like to a kid. Anyway, her house didn't help. It was old. Everything in it was old, and it was dark. I don't know how best to describe it other than to say I always felt that being inside my grandma's house wasn't much different from being outside of it. In any season the windows in the house would stay jammed open with old, bent screens, which had to be shimmed into place with old slats from some discarded louver door. Grandma had this rusty pot-belly stove right smack in the middle of her bedroom. I remember constantly dodging it as I ran through the house playing. At night, she'd load the stove with one great big chunk of hickory, and you could see the flames licking through the cracks. I'd lay on the floor with my sleeping bag, positioning myself so that the stove was in between me and Grandma's bed. Facing this direction meant that I could easily see the window at the foot of her bed. It was like a nightlight for me. Everything in that house was black at night, unless there was a window nearby. So, there I lay one night. It was chilly, and I remember having trouble sleeping because the moonlight coming through the window was so bright. It was late, which meant the stove wasn't roaring anymore. Besides my grandma's breathing, the whole house was dead silent. It was just the two of us. No one else was in the house. Without any warning, a tall black figure calmly walks from the shadows at the far side of the room. He passed between the stove and bed, across the floor just a foot from my head, and out through the doorway into the kitchen. I was petrified. Couldn't move an inch. This may sound crazy, but had I felt like a burglar was in the house, I'd like to think I would have moved. Or shouted, or something. I didn't think it was a burglar, though. No specific reason why. It just felt wrong. I don't think I fell asleep that night. All I remember is staring at the kitchen doorway, for a long time. When my grandma woke up, she rolled out of bed and grabbed the fire poker. I sat up and began to tell her what I'd saw. Like I said, I always felt like my grandma was a little bit witchy. After I finished telling her about the tall man, she just poked at the coals in the stove and said, "Hectometers, haven't seen him in a long time." I can remember sitting in the hallway upstairs in my house when I was a kid and looking up and seeing two fully black people, shadow people I'd assume, run up the staircase in front of me into the bathroom. I followed and looked behind the shower curtain and nothing was there. Another day I was in the same hallway and glanced into my brother's room and seen a hand reach out from beside the doorway, in the room behind the wall connected to the door, and it was motioning me to come with long old fingers. It was just one finger pointing up, bending for me to come. I got scared and ran downstairs. I was outside my house, and an old stray dog was walking down the street. It was a blonde dog. It completely ignored me, and as it passed, at least the way I remember it, this blonde dog was suddenly a black dog. It was just for a second, but I know I wasn't dreaming. I still can't explain it. Edit. From what I remember, nothing else that I could see changed at the time that this happened with the dog. No clouds passed over the sun. I wasn't blinking. I wasn't dizzy. Everything was completely normal, except for whatever happened with that dog. When I was younger, I remember playing outside in the front yard during the late spring. I think I was about 8 or 9, I can't really remember. But I was in the front yard and this old sedan pulled up onto the side of the road in front of the house. I don't know whether he called me over to the car or what, but I was at the side of the car and this guy was telling me that he lost his dog and if I could get in the car with him and help him find it because he wasn't familiar with the neighborhood. I told him that I couldn't help him and ran back inside. It's this deep memory that's always been lurking in the back of my head and I didn't remember it until a few years ago, but sometimes I worry that it never happened at all and it was some weird childhood delusion I had. Either way, I don't want to think about what could have happened to me if I agreed to help him find his dog. I had an imaginary friend when I was around 3. I told my dad his name, and he then told my grandma the next time we were at her house. She took me to her bedroom and showed me a photo and asked me, "Who's this?" I got so excited and exclaimed, "Stanley." He was her cousin who died in the 30s. Leave a like to get approached by this good boy and subscribe to get 5 years of good luck.